Okay, thank you, Coach. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
All right. If you can put in that picture as I talk,
now.
I would really appreciate it. And thank you so much for giving me this platform. And let me take the time to say good evening to all the GIG community and to also all our visitors that are joining us for the first time today. I really want to say that it will be worth your while. This has been a life-changing journey for me. So my part is really just to share a brief testimony of my journey with GIG up to this point. So as Jasper has introduced me, my name is Sarah Odwa, and I am a proud member of this GIG community and also a legacy coach based in the south of Johannesburg. So, Coach, I decided to actually write down my testimony because otherwise I could just go on and on. So just so that I can make sure I keep within the time, I've written it down. So you'll allow me to just read what is in my heart so that I make sure that the things that are important for me that I wanted to share with you, I do not miss out. So Sir Winston Churchill actually says this, and this has been profound for me. He says, success is failing over and over without the loss of enthusiasm. My journey with GIG began on the 23rd of June, 2018, when Jasper gave gifts to each of us who were the members of the International Christian Chamber of Commerce. And we were attending an ICCC conference here in Johannesburg. The gift was a copy of his book called Legacy. Mine is signed with the following message. To Sarah Odwa, success on leading your family on this 3-generational mindset. It was and still is an answer to prayer for me. In 2017, I had a light bulb moment. I realized it was not the lack of money that was my problem. It was lack of wisdom in how I handled the money I had, whether big or small. So that is what I asked God for wisdom to be able to understand and handle money and be found faithful as a financial steward. The Lord answered me by bringing the GIG philosophy to me through Jasper, a coach who has thrown me in the deep end many a times, and as such has made me such a better person. I really am eternally grateful, Jasper, really am. I have bulleted the benefits that I have received from being involved with the GIG community so far. Someone once said, show me your associations and the books that you read, and I will tell you the type of person that you will be and where you will be in 5 years. My first benefit is a benefit of association. The GIG community has given me the privilege to be with like-minded people, and even better, people who think outside the box, people who stretch me, people who even sometimes makes me very irritated and frustrated because they tell the truth that helps me better. People like Jasper, as I said, Gavin, Julian, and the likes. And also recently, the Mbambisas, whom I really regard as my mentors. And they showed me such humility where they actually insisted that they wanted to be coached by me. And they've actually stretched me, because you can imagine having your role models, people that have modeled this generational legacy, and they saying they're going to be coached by me. But this is the benefit of association that I continue to enjoy in the GIG community. The second benefit, someone said, if you do not change direction, you will end up where you are headed. I was faced with the dilemma of having no income for almost a decade because of some choices I made. I had every reason to not take the membership option of GIG. Where would I get the 120 Rand a month to ensure that I was a member and also get the funeral benefit? But I had learned that if I do not change direction, I would end up where I am headed. So I took the plunge. When I heard about the 5% referral commission and the 5% legacy coach commission, I saw this as a platform that I could use so that it could pay for my monthly membership at that time. And it certainly is doing that and is allowing that extra 120 that I started with, that I didn't know where it would come from, that I would have had enough reason to say I can't join. It now goes in as part of my savings because the commission actually pays for my monthly membership. The third benefit that I've gotten from GIG, our legacy coach interview that my husband and I did with Jasper. It helped us to confront issues that I don't believe we would have confronted had we not done that interview. They probably would still be there, these issues, alive and thriving under the carpet, eating away at our marriage. But they are now in the light, and we are actually better off as a result. And in this regard, GIG saved my marriage. And the fourth benefit, when we attended the first training, Jasper took us through the budgeting. And of course, I don't have a lot of time to go into details with some of these things, but I started putting the envelope principle in practice. You will hear when Jasper takes you through and encourages you to go and hear about the training on the website. So I started saving 10%, tithing 10%, putting away 20% for big items and debt, and living on 60%, what I have come to call as the value of 100 Rand. In my action plan, I was due to pay off my debts by end of 2022. And I'm happy to say to you that I have paid off my last debt end of January 2021. And this is the journey that GIG has been affording me. And we are now working on a strategy to help my husband get out of debt, and it is looking good. The fifth benefit, Jasper also challenged us when we were doing the goal setting module to identify income streams, write them down, put them where we can see them. Two significant ones that I want to share as I go towards my conclusion. One was to serve as a professional director in boards. And the second one was to use my creative gift as a means to serve others and also generate income. Today, I have completed my academic part of the professional directors program. And I'm doing my practicals as a shadow board member with GIG. I have a company today, Odila Creations, where we do custom-made gift hampers and flowers. And this became a huge lifeline during COVID-19 season, a sustainable, growing income stream. I can go on and on, but time does not allow me. What COVID-19 season has taught me is this, and this is what I would love to leave with you as the GIG community and those who are coming for the first time, hopefully who will join us as part of this community. COVID-19 has taught me that your mindset drives your life. As a man thinks, so is he. And so, if you want to turn the direction of your life, you must first be willing to invest in changing your mindset. The intellectual property of the GIG Institute provides some of this for us. So I want to encourage you that you use it. Don't wait for crisis before you dig that well. Someone said, dig the well before you need the water. And certainly the GIG Institute provides that. I close with this quote as I finish my testimony. There is no elevator to success. You have to take the stairs. And that is my life journey. And thank you, Jasper, for allowing me to share it. What you see in front of you is a picture that Jasper has just taken out. It's fine, Jasper, you don't have to go back. I'm sure they were looking at it. This is a profile picture of our South group. And it really reflects the journey of our lives, the choices we have to make. Are we going to go for pills and surgery, or are we going to go the harder routes of changing the lifestyle? And GIG offers us that. So thank you very much. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Sarah. What I love about Sarah is she literally take life, the scruff of the neck, and make it adjust to what she wants out of it. And she's volunteered this testimony, and that's why it's so precious. And thank you very much. And that's part of thinking out of the box, because normally we do a presentation and then right at the end we do a testimony. We can actually now close the meeting And those who want to know more about GIG can now contact Sarah or myself and take it from there. All right, friends. So tonight is really an introduction to a movement. It's not an organization. It's not a product. It's not a program. It's a movement. It's a movement of people that are sick and tired of being broke. Their plans for their life is not working out. They follow the rules of the system and they don't know why it's not working. And right now, more than ever, people are totally confused because the rules of the game has changed and will never go back to where it has been. So what you will have a quick overview on is the GIG Institute. Sarah referred to it a few times. We'll tell you about our community bank, which is called a GIG CFI, CFI standing for Cooperative Financial Institution. Right at the end, we'll talk about the club. Now, it all started in 2008 for me when I got a revelation on an ancient text that you might be very familiar with, but I refer to it as an ancient truth, which states that a good man leaves an inheritance of moral stability and goodness to his children's children, and the wealth of the sinner finds its way eventually into the hands of the righteous for whom it was laid up. So what does it mean? So many of you would immediately recognize it as something that you've heard before, and many preachers might have preached on it. So for those of you who want to look it up, it's in Proverbs 13, verse 22, and I've quoted out of the Amplified. So for a lot of people, this was used to say, become a Christian and then you can claim the wealth of the sinner. The revelation I received is, in the time of Solomon, these truths were already in the mouths of people, and it came about when wise men of old would observe nations, not just Jews, but Jews and Greeks and whoever, and over long periods of time, and they would observe that if you consistently do action A, the result will always be result B. And that then became a social law, and those days that they didn't have the money to write things down because it was quite expensive. Only the rich people could afford scribes. So by the time that Solomon came to earth, he was both a scholar and also very rich, and he realized that these wisdoms that's now in the mouths of people, and that's why it's called Proverbs, because they would verbally transfer it down to the next generation. Let it not go lost, and he then made sure that it was written down. And God knew the best place to protect it is put it in the Bible, because then nobody reads the Bible, then it's a treasure, and I'm just joking there. But it's really not just for Christians. It's a social truth that's always true in any time period. So if I now take the Christianese out of it, what this truth says during any time in the history of mankind, COVID, pre-COVID, post-COVID, but if you can find a man, woman, or that are willing to dedicate their lives on earth to leave an inheritance and moral stability and goodness, which means it must be to the benefit of society. But who is the inheritance for? The children's children, your grandchildren. And many of you might not have grandchildren yet, but through the eyes of faith, you must look through your children to see the time when your grandchildren will be here on earth. So that's part one. Only those who leave an inheritance that will still be functional and beneficial to the time period of your grandchildren, part A, then the reward is the wealth, the unused resources of the sinner, families who miss the mark, will come into the hands of the righteous, families who do the right thing. For me, this was a wow. Because for the first time, I realized God is fair. Every person who does this, Christian or non-Christian, can lay claim to that promise. So how can it change our society? And this graph helped me to unpack it. What you see in front of you in the graph is a timeline in years, and you can expect to become 80 years old. And that makes you generation 1. So on the vertical line and horizontal line, the vertical line that goes up is then a time is then a line of your wealth, how we measure your wealth and influence in society. What is currently happening is that 99.9% of society is programmed to live the one generational life, which is depicted by the yellow color, saying I get born in a household somewhere on earth, then I spend the first 20 years of my life to try and figure out what I want to do and study further and do what I can to find the best paying job, the best paying career, so I can make the most money as fast as I can, because around about 50, life will kick me out. And now that was in good times. Now that kicks you out even earlier. And then the wisdom of the current generation says, but don't worry, if you've worked hard until 50 and you've invested wisely, you should then be able to eat your money slowly enough that it should last you until your dying day. And if you're a really good person, you might even be able to pay for the funeral and leave some money for your kids. Would you agree that's the prevailing mindset of people? Now that's sad to say that that is the current prevailing mindset. And what this does, it creates a generation of consumers who generation after generation in their lifetime make it and eat it. And then the next generation starts at nothing and they make it and they eat it. And then at nothing and they make it and they eat it. So if you plot a trend line, the trend line says this family, if they continue on the path that they are currently on, they can't expect any better than to just survive month to month, year to year. So you've heard Sarah says that if you stay on the path you're on, you will get there. But is this the path that you want to stay on and get there? Look what happened when you're old. If you currently look at old people around you, and now we put a line there, and that's your wealth, your influence, your impact on society, would you agree that most people are not considered a benefit to society, but in their old age, they've written off maybe living in the backyard of someone's house considered a burden? And for those of you who joined us tonight, thank you for doing it. But if you don't do something about it, this is where you're heading. And it's not an exciting future. But what if we can come back to that promise that was in Proverbs 13:22, and we take it to just one step further? What happens if we can, during our lifetime, and we will probably not get older than 80, but think what in our lifetime, dedicate everything we do to the time when our children will be old people. So that's the green lines. How do you think beyond your death 30 years into the future? I can tell you, most people can't even think beyond the next so-called, family meeting of Mr. Ramaphosa, because their lives are so uncertain. So what it requires of you, and that was what Sarah said in her testimony, is to take the initiative here. Think beyond the now. See what you can do with what you have. And in this green line, it's someone who then says, I start making decisions. I'm looking at what is the most likely scenario for the future. I start taking decisions based on that. I position my family in front of these decisions. And for a long time, I'm broke because I plow everything back into my businesses and my training and my degrees. But when another person, the other people's economic curve goes down, the decisions you made are starting to kick in and the results are kicking in, and you're on an upward curve. And even at a ripe old age, you will still be impactful in society, making decisions and impact your community. Now, if I ask you how many such people you know, the answer would be very few, if any. But we praise God for these people that are out there in communities, but they're not many. Well, you know what? God has even a bigger plan. He wants everyone in society not to be the yellow line or the green line. He has in mind the purple line. The purple line says, think beyond your death, not for the time of your children, but for the time of your grandchildren. And what this graph illustrates is, let's say you had your children at 30 and they will have their children at 30. So you have to think 60 years beyond your death. And so what does this purple line predict? It says, you start with humble beginnings. You didn't know what you had to do, but then as time goes on, you got around you the right mentors, the right associations, you reinvest your capital, you might change the jobs a few times until you find your career. Sooner or later, you'll be in a business. You take your children with you on this journey to teach them the language of generational thinkers, that we are not consumers, but we are builders. We are no longer owners, but stewards. And if you find your business, and we believe that for every family on earth, there's at least 3 commercially viable businesses locked in you that you just need to unlock and pack out. But unless you are exposed to the right environment, you won't know how to unlock these opportunities. Then as time goes on, build your businesses, but it's not to say that your children will necessarily want to follow in your footsteps and go into the same business. And don't force them. Study your children and release them in their gifting. But remember, what you're doing is not for your children, it's for the time of your grandchildren, which in many cases, your grandchildren are not even birthed yet. So you do it, you put it in companies, put it in the right legal systems, put in the right management structures. And as you get older, your impact on society and your means to impact society just improve. Life is fun. And then one day you called home. What people would call death, we just say called home. And then only do you reach your peak in life. And in hindsight, that was your peak, but your peak is now the next foundation for the next generation to now build on where they need to go. And their peak would be the foundation from where they build for the 3rd generation. And for this family who is on this generational journey, it will be said that they've grown from strength to strength to strength. Question is what I'm saying theory, or is it actually working? The good news is yes, and we made a study since 2008 of several such families. Here in South Africa, we looked at the Oppenheimers, the Ruperts, the Maponias, and what was amazing is that for each of these families, if you go back to the founding parent, mother and father, they had nothing going for them. Whether it was apartheid, whether it was being an orphan or a poor Afrikaner living on the outskirts, doesn't matter. They were in the same boat where many people find themselves today. And we said if we can just tap into what made them think differently and how did they then applied steps that in their lifetime they led their family out of poverty into wealth, but also put in systems and values so that their next generation built onto it and did not consume the wealth. And that's what GIG is all about. We've now tapped into that mindset. We've made that the IP that Sarah refers to. And you can now have it by joining us on this GIG journey. But just a word of caution. If you don't do anything about this journey, understand that you then choose, you can no longer blame governments or apartheid or your family or the church for where you are. You have chosen the journey of the yellow line. And understand the journey of the yellow line is very much manipulated and controlled by the governments of the day, the media of the day, the financial structures of the day, that is basically programming you to feel a victim and that you can't handle and work with your own money. So what if you say, I want to get onto the purple line? The good news is you can. We have now unpacked that journey. It's also in that book that Sarah referred to, but it's interwoven in the whole journey of people. And on the left-hand side would be the 99.9% people as they join us being programmed to stay in economic pain and lack. It's not a nice place to be. But if you join us, we will lead you on a step-by-step process to a place where in your lifetime you will arrive at abundance and prosperity and the generational mindset. So what is this step-by-step journey? We call it the journey of the 4 S's. First S is understand that you are programmed to stay in struggle. Struggle basically says whatever income you're earning minus your cost of living expenses, what is the end result? And if it's a minus, and it has been a minus for the last couple of months and many months, how do you feel? You probably feel hopeless. Now, whether you're a Christian or not, it has nothing to do with solving this equation. You only solve this equation by looking at income and what can I do to add income? And for if you get involved, we'll be able to tell you. And what can I do to lower expenses? And that's the only things you can do. And the good news is you can do it. Many people have already done it. And if you then do it, somewhere along the line, you will move from a minus into a surplus where income exceeds expenses. And then you're no longer hopeless because you have hope and you've reached what we call stability. Now, unless you also at this point in time do some other things, the temptation will always be there to fall back in your old thinking, which is seeing an advert on TV where you are enticed to spend some more money on clothing or something that you don't really need, but on the moment you feel, man, life is so hard. Let me just treat myself with something. And the sad part is people then incur further debt and they fall into bigger struggle. So what can you do in stability? Learn the power of investment. Even with small investments, how you can get ahead. And to what end? You're only successful if you reach the third S, success, if you have more than 3 growing and sustainable income streams. And then you have choices. So we don't define success as brand clothing, houses, cars, titles, job titles, but do you have choices? And once you have that 3 or more sustainable income streams, doesn't matter how much money it is, the point is you can from here on grow. And now the job is to become a specialist in it. Tweak your income streams, make that 100 Rand a month, become 1,000, become 10, become 100,000. And as you take ownership of your income streams, that will make you the specialist that people want to be around with, and opportunity will start to find you. And that's what happened for all these families I've mentioned to you. They started with 1 or 2 family core businesses, but today their business portfolio is spanned across all the income areas in our country, but in most cases, even in other countries. So for many of those families, most of their wealth are no longer just tied up in South Africa. But you stay in that and you grow so that you can be released in the real reason why you're here on earth, and that's your significance. And significance is to work from rest, live your purpose, invest in society, but not having to ask people for donor funding and all the kind of things. And there's nothing against donor funding, but it's just sad to see how many of the outreaches in society is not operating from success, but from struggle. And that is not sustainable. So that briefly is the GIG journey. Now, that's the message. You'll read more of that when you go through the first course. Then for people who want to say, but it's interesting, but I've heard you talk about a bank. What is the bank? Well, I want to tell you about a secret that I call the multiplier effect of money. And just as an introduction, you get 3 kinds of banks: the commercial bank, the ABSAs, and the net banks that you're familiar with. That's not what we talk about here. But there's a second kind of bank that you also might be familiar with, a mutual bank. And VBS was the last bank that folded. Today, there's only one bank standing, and that's Finbond. But there's a third bank that not a lot of people are aware of, and it's called a cooperative bank. So we are under that law. But how do you use people's money when you can't just create money out of thin air? And that's the power of what we've been able to do since 2008 when we started GIG. Let's say in your community, you can get 100 people together who commit to save 100 Rand a month each. That becomes a pool of money called 10,000 Rand. And now, because it's your money for your community, you can decide what do you want to do with that money. So for the sake of our example, we're going to say for only those participating members, they can then make loans interest-free, but it must be payable over 5 months, and you can only pay out loans according to what you have in the kitty. And once you've made a loan, you stand in the queue until everybody had a chance. So let's just quickly run through this example. In month 1, there's 10 coming in, 10 available for loans. It goes out, doesn't matter to how many people, and it must come back over the next 5 months as 2,000, 2,000, 2,000, and so forth. In month 2, 100 people save 100 Rand again. It's a new 10,000 that comes in, plus the 2 that's repaid. There's now 12,000 in the kitty available for new loans. 12,000 that goes out and must be repaid over 5 months is 24 times 5. And in the third month, a new 10 comes in, plus the 2 that's repaid, plus the 2,4, that's 14,4. If we now project this into 12 months down the road, this group of people, of 100 people, will have collectively saved 120,000 Rand, but because they operate a bank out of in month 12, they already have 44,000 Rand in their kitty to pay out available to loans. And if we add up what they've already paid out in loans, it adds up to 315,000 real that went to real people to pay real bills and start businesses. If we have to stop this business in month 12 and just wait for all the money to be repaid, there will be another 75,000 come back. So we have created an economic growth to a close group of people of almost 3 times what they would have had if they just left the money in the bank. And unfortunately, most of the stokvels operate from the left side. Money comes in, it all goes out to one person, and he must pay the cost of the party. And it's a good way to socialize and have a bit of money floating around, but there's not much economic growth. But if we can do this in a grouping, and we've had success for the last many years, then this money just keeps growing and growing. And it's on this basis that GIG CFI, that came into being in 2011, have built its financial products. So what are our financial products? When you join the GIG movement, you've got a free member option and a paid member option. I'll tell you more about it. But then the paid member option is a choice of 60 or 120 Rand per month, which gives you access to all our 4 products here. And there's a once-off registration of 250, which includes 1 share of 100 Rand, so it makes you a co-owner of the bank. So we've got normal financial products, 2 of them, which you can bring your savings for fixed amounts for a period of 6 or 12 or 24 months, and interest and capital is guaranteed. If you want to know more about what are the interest rates, go to our website and find out more about there, or talk to your legacy coach. Then we encourage every person to also open up a 32-day call account for personal projects like saving for Christmas gift or school fees or a project. And while the money is in the account, it earns interest at market rates. But whenever you need it, you just call it up at 32 days notice. But then we have unique products that no other bank has. The first one is what we call an investor account. It's like the 32-day call account. The first 2,000 Rand, you don't earn interest on. You need to go beyond that to start activating the interest, but it makes you a member of our investor club. And then we have a group of specialists searching for opportunities. And when we see something that produces above market return on investment, then we bring it to our investors and they can choose to participate or not. And we look at the areas of business and property. Then we also have a unique product called Loan Link Share, or the abbreviation LLS. And this is where you invest interest-free, and people would say, why would I invest interest-free? Well, that is how we grow our pool of interest-free money. And if you have contributed to that pool after 12 months of contributing, you can then qualify to make your first loan against what you have invested up to 3 times gearing. Now, currently for the COVID period, we've just brought that gearing down to 2 times, but in time to come, it can go up again. Then after you've paid back your first loan, interest-free, over 12 months, future loans can then be had over the period that you've been a member of the bank, eventually up to 7 years. And this could eventually be used to make big payments like buying cars and even property, but doing those kind of things that you currently can't do. So it's a private family fund that you run, you control, and the bank just makes sure that everything runs smooth. All right, so to wrap up this side of it, before I just show you how to go on, there are 3 kinds of membership, and ultimately we want you as a family to benefit, have the time to enjoy the health and to enjoy the money, vice versa, so work on each other. But the path to get there is visit our website, join as a free member, and then decide whether you want to go for the classic member or the Wealth Builder member. During the free member stage, there's online training that we want you to just go through, which is basically this presentation wrapped into a course, and you have time to just rethink things and see if you're comfortable with the whole process. Then, if you go for the classic membership, which is 60 Rand per month, after you paid your once-off 250 fee, you get the normal products, you get the sophisticated products, you get access to all our webinars, rallies, networking, and then also your own private legacy coach, which we, in time to come, will share more about with you. Then the final option is the Wealth Builder option, where you have everything that you have in the classic, but you also have funeral cover. And then funeral cover to the value of 30,000 Rand for the principal and the spouse, 30,000 if any one of them should die. Adult children, 13 to 21 years, 20,000. Smaller kids, 6 to 13 years, 7,500. And then young kids under 6, 3,000. So for some of you, and I hope for none of you, it's the end, but I hope for all of you, it's the beginning. So if you want to take it further, and we'll open up just now for some question and answers, go to gig-institute.com. So if you want to make a screenshot of this thing, gig-institute.com. And then what you will find on our landing page, this little picture of an old man walking with his grandson. And you have 2 options. Take the shortcut to free membership or the shortcut to paid membership. Well, start with the free membership, and that will take you to our free membership journey. The first thing we want you to do is click on this video. It's just a 4-minute video with an introduction as to what is the GIG program, what is the bank, how does it work, and see if you feel comfortable to be associated with this kind of focus. Then if you like it, then the next step, if you scroll down, it will bring you to a free membership form where you give us your first name, last name, mobile number, email, and then who referred you to GIG. So whoever invited you to come to the presentation tonight, that would then be your referrer. And we would like to keep these family structures going, so please put the name there. And then once you referred someone, it will bring you back to this page. And then we've created tonight's message into a little online course. It's free, 14 lessons from 1 to 6 minutes. We call it the generational journey from struggle to significance. Go onto it from your cell phone, from your pad, computer, doesn't matter. If you get interrupted, no problem. You just come back to it later. And that's how we will know that you have actually gone through it and understand what you commit to. And then by the end of that, you should be okay now to say, yes, I'm now ready. I know which journey I want to take. And then apply it for a paid membership. And then there's a whole form to complete, also who referred you, and choose then between the 60 and the 120 Rand. Now, there's more to come after this, but I want you for the new people for now just to get to the stage.